Recording has started. So today we want to look at how to fetch data from an endpoint in ReactJS. Of course, a lot of times you will need to fetch data maybe from backend. You will need to fetch data from an endpoint. So let's see how to do that. We will use the Axios library. It's easy to use. That's why I love it. Axios is easy to use. So let's see how we can fetch data from an endpoint. So first is let's have a button. Let's say fetch data. So when I click on this button, I want to fetch data. So let's go to this website and fetch data there. Just simply so that. So we can fetch users. Let's fetch users. So I want to fetch this data. This is an array of objects. Inside this, we have 10 users. Oh, where is it? We have it here. We have 10 users. If you are fetching today, we have 200 to dos. If you are fetching photos, 5,000. So let's fetch users. I want to fetch these 10 users. This is the first user. This is the second. On and on like that. So let's see how we can do that in ReactJS. I'll come here. We install a library called Axios. Axios is a lightweight library to fetch that you can use to fetch data from an endpoint. So I'll stop this now. Then I'll say npm install Axios. Sorry, someone wants to join. So let's go back then. npm install, let me make it bigger. npm install Axios. When you run this command, it goes to the npm.js.org to install Axios for you. What do I mean? When you run npm install anything, it goes to this website, npm.js.org. npm stands for Node Package Manager. Then it goes to this website and it fetches it. This is what I mean. Axios. So we are going to install a lot of libraries, a lot of packages from this website as we move on. So this is the command we just did. You can write it in full, npm install Axios, or you can shorten it as npm I Axios. So as time goes on, we still install some other libraries from npm too. Do you have any questions so far? Can we proceed? Can you hear me? Hello, everyone. Am I alone?
No, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so let's continue. When I click on this button, I will use the Axios to fetch the data. Now, but this is, let me quickly add this. When you install any package like that, it goes to your node modus. When you install any package, it goes to this node modus. But then, the name of the package you installed will be inside this library called package.json. Will be inside this file. Can you see Axios there? If I uninstall the Axios, this will live here. So let me uninstall it. npm uninstall Axios. So when I come here now, it will no longer be in this package.json. Now, only the name and the version are kept here, but the package itself is in the node modus. Please keep that in mind. The package itself is in the node module, but the name and the version, I think we've talked about this at the beginning. We've talked about this. So npm install exist. This is the exist. Let's make use of this in our code. So when I click on this button, I want to call on a function. I'll click on this. Let's get a function here. Because maybe let's just say fetch data. So when I click on this button, I will call on this function, fetch data. So what is this data going to, what will this function do? First thing, you bring in the exhaust. So here is the exhaust. Exhaust has a method on it called get. You use get whenever you want to retrieve something from an endpoint. Whenever you want to get something, you use get. We also have some other ones, post, delete, put, patch, but we are not going into that. We're not going to. When you're getting data, you use the get. When you are sending the data to the backend, you use the post. We also have the put and the patch, but for now, the get and the post we do almost everything you need for now. So Axios.get. You use this get whenever you are retrieving data from an endpoint. We just want to get data. So next is you put the URL here. I want to retrieve data from this endpoint. This is the data we want to fetch from this URL. So you put this URL here like this. It just get data from this URL. Let's save that in a variable. Let's say my data equals to this. Now let's try to console it, and you see something here. Pending console log my data. Oops. Let's try to see this. When I click on this button, you expect that it goes to this URL to fetch the data. Then it will log it to the console. Now let's see if that's the way it actually works. So I'll click on this now, and you see pending. What's going on? Have we not attached it? I'll click. Fetch data. Come. It's not responding. Oh, something is wrong. Oh, I've not started this server here. npm start. Okay. Oops. Okay. So back to what I was explaining. When you click on this button, you expect it to fetch the data from the endpoint, from the URL. But we have this thing called promise pending. Promise pending. Why is this? Why do we have this promise pending? Let's discuss that. The problem with promise pending. Okay, let me move this a lot. And go back again and click on this. Now, why is this? Let's go to vanilla JavaScript to explain it. Then when we are done, we come back to React to understand what's going on. Let's go to, let me open a HTML file. Okay, so this is it. In JavaScript, codes are run they are read synchronously. What that means is that the first line is read before the second line. The second line is read before the third line. So in this case, we say this code runs synchronously. Please, are we following me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in this case, we say this code runs synchronously. Now, but then sometimes some codes might run, sometimes some codes might run asynchronously. That is not in the order that they are written. Let's give an example. So I'll come here and bring in something called set timeout. Console log. Let's say, how are you doing? So I will run this in the browser and see so that I will see the results. Now, I will delay this for maybe 100 milliseconds. So set timeout, console log, how are you doing? We are delaying it for 100 milliseconds. Now, you see, notice that although in our codes, this good is beneath this, but on the browser, this good comes before this. Good comes before this. How are you doing? In this case, it's not running synchronously. Do we understand what it means to run code synchronously and asynchronously? Based on this explanation, normally JavaScript runs code synchronously, but there are some circumstances whereby codes do not run synchronously. In that case, we say they run asynchronously. Please, can you hear me? And do you understand what I just explained?
Yes.
Okay, let's continue. So how does that affect our codes, what we are doing? Here is it. Imagine a scenario whereby I want to make use of the result of this set timeout. Imagine, I know this will take some time, but I want to make use of the result of this here. I come again. Although this runs before this, and that's because JavaScript does not delay, it doesn't waste time. JavaScript does not waste time. So if this is instructing JavaScript to delay it for 100 milliseconds, so instead of JavaScript waiting there, instead of waiting for the 100 milliseconds, it just goes straight to the next thing. Then it can now come back to run this part. Now it's an advantage because it makes your code run fast instead of getting stuck at a point. You just go straight to the next point and read the rest. But then this can also pose a problem for us because imagine I want to make use of this, whatever this returns, I want to make use of it here. And since this one will run before this, right? So I want to be able to make use of this response here. Do you get the explanation? Imagine I want to make use of this, whatever this returns, I want to use it here. But because this runs before this, then that will not be possible. Now, we have two ways to solve that. You can either use the then, or you use async await. Then or async await. How does the then work? You have a okay. That is just a promise, but let's just explain the async await. I'll make use of the async await in our code. This is React class. I just want you to understand why things are the way they are. I'll just explain how async await works. Now, async await is this. When you can't use async await outside a function. It needs to be inside a function. So let's say I have a function like this. Here's a function. I can say you put async here. Right. So I can say await console log good await let's just do this. So hello console log hi. Let's see what this means. You see, normally, of course, without this awaits, our code will definitely run this followed by this followed by this because this is not wasting time. But with this await, even if this line wastes time, line 14 will wait for line 13 to finish. Do you understand? Await means everything after this line within this function must wait for that line to finish. Do you get the explanation? Even if this wait takes time, even if it's going to take some period of time, line 14 will wait for it. Without this await, without this await, if this line takes some time, line 13, if it takes some time, JavaScript will ignore it and jump to the next line. But with the await, sorry, someone wants to join. With the await, if this line takes time, JavaScript will wait for that line to finish before going to the next line. Do you understand how async await works now? Do you understand me? Any questions so far?
Yeah.
Do you have any question? Okay. If there's no question, let's now go back to.
But
Okay.
can you shed more light on the does then?
Oh, okay. I'm thinking this is a React class. That's why I don't want to go into promises, JavaScript promises. Dot then is an alternative to this async await. Dot then is an alternative to it. Let's just touch it a bit before we leave this session. Now, when you make a promise, you can either fulfill the promise or you don't, right? So in JavaScript also, we can make a promise. We can make a promise. When you make a request to an endpoint to the backend to fetch data, what you are saying is the backend is making a promise that, oh, how do I say it? When you make a request to the backend, it's like you are making a promise that I will send data. The fact that you are making a request to the backend does not necessarily mean that the backend will send data. In fact, it doesn't even necessarily mean that the front end will be able to fetch the data, right? What you are doing is you are making a promise that I will send some data. But you see, whenever you are making a request to an endpoint outside your server, outside your front end like this, it takes time. Whenever you are making a request to an endpoint that is outside your server, presently our React is running on this port 3000. Where is it? It's running on port 3000. When you make a request to anything outside of this port now, outside of this, it takes time. It's going to spend some time. So it doesn't happen immediately. It takes some time. And remember what we said at the beginning of, a few minutes ago when I said console log, let's say first, console log, second, console log, third. So I said if the second takes some time, if the second takes some time, JavaScript will not wait for second. It jumps straight to third, right? Are you following me? Let's assume this takes some time. JavaScript will not wait for second. It jumps to third. When it's done with third, then it comes back to second. Now, what you can now do is imagine you want to make use of whatever second brings inside this third on this line 13. Imagine you want to do that. So what you can do is this. This line can promise this line. Do you understand? It will make a promise to you that, oh, I'm promising you to send a response to you. This promise now can either be fulfilled or rejected. It may not even end up fulfilling the promise, but it will promise it. So when you promise like that, let's use them. I will use coming Axios CDN. Okay, let's use Axios CDN to make a request. Please, are we following me? If you have any question, please you can ask your question. Oh, this is taking time. Let's use the JavaScript fetch API then. Okay. Wow, it's taking too much time. CDN. Okay, yeah. We have a CDN here. I'll copy this. I'll bring it to my code. So now I can say exhaust dot get. Then let me fetch from this URL. Now this will take some time. Remember I said whenever you are fetching something from an endpoint from the server, it takes some time. Now I want to use the response here. If I say coming let response equals to this, and I say console log response like this. This line will not wait for this line. So when I say console log response, you will see the same thing you saw the other time, pending promise. You will see that same thing there. Where's my HTML? Okay. So you see the same response, pending promise. What that means is that this is still fetching as at the time you log this to the console. So what you can do instead is you can use your then. This is a promise. You now join it with .then. Now inside this .then you put this here like this, a function. You put a callback function here. Whatever is within this callback function, whatever is inside this, whatever code I put here, we wait for this to resolve. It will wait for this to fetch the data before running the codes here. Do you understand? Whatever is outside like this will not wait for it. Console log A. This A will come before this console log I. This A will come before this I, and that's because whatever is within this then, we wait for this to fetch the data before doing anything, before running the codes here. But this A will not wait since it's not within this place. Let's check it out. So you see the A before the I, and that's because whatever you put here will wait. Now, that now gives us an advantage. We can get the response now. We can say response. You can put anything here. I call it rice. You can call it anything. So inside this, you will have the data you are fetching from your endpoints. You have it there. So here's the data. There's a data. Exhaust usually puts it inside this data properties. So can you see this? Come back and compare it with this. Lingram, and this. So we've been able to fetch this. Any questions so far?
No question. Right there.
Okay. Now this is using then, but async await is, well, I think it's easier to use. So you can make use of the async await, and how that works is this: you put inside the function like this, then you say it must be an async function. You put async here like this. So you can now say await exhaust.get. You get from this URL. So you don't need to use .then. Remember I said this is an alternative and a simpler alternative. So whatever you fetch now, you can save it in a variable. So it's a good here, fetch it and save it in a variable. Console log. Response like this. So because of this await, everything after this await will wait for this line to finish. It will wait. Don't worry, we'll talk about error handling later. But for now, just keep in mind that everything after this line will wait for this to finish. So it will first fetch this before it console log response, and we will see the same response, the same thing we saw the other time. So let's call on my func. And of course, when you don't call on the function, it doesn't run the codes inside our function. So we are calling on this function so that it can run these codes. Okay. So we have the same results. The way exhaust works is that data that is fetching, that data you are fetching will be inside this data property. There's a property on exhaust called data. So you can see your data inside that property. So I can say response.data. It's not a must to call this response. This can be anything. So this is These are our array of objects. So let's now go to ReactJS and make use of this.
So I have a question.
Okay, you can ask.
So my question is, in a situation whereby you want to fetch data from another endpoint.
Okay.
But now we are fetching from one endpoint now. In a situation whereby we want to fetch from like two endpoints.
Okay.
So now we and in the same function that we declared. So is it that we are going to have await appearing two times and async once? Or is it that we are going to have another async somewhere and then await for the other second endpoint?
Okay, thank you. So since they are inside the function, you just hide the async once. You put your async here. Then here you can await here. Then you can await again. The reason this is throwing back an error is because this doesn't have async. So I have async now. You see the error has gone. Then you can still await again and put your URL Excel.get. Do you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, so let's continue. So when you click on this button, it's going to call on this function, runs all these codes. Then it will fetch data from this URL. The data fetched is saved as variable my data. Then remember I said on Axios, we have a property on it called data, right? Whatever data you are fetching will be inside that data property. So you can say that data so that you just get the data there. Okay, so let's go to the browser now and let's click on that button to fetch the data. We are done with this part. Let me close this, close. Okay, close. Now, I'll refresh this. Click on this button. We have this. So here is our array of objects that contains all the data. So I can save it. I can set it as a state now. Let's get a state. Let's users apps. Users set users. This state I can set as an empty array. So set users my data dot data. So the value of users now, immediately you click on this button, the value of users will automatically be my data dot data. But instead of saying dot data here, you can just destructure here like this. You've done destruction, right? So let's display all the users. We have, I want to look at how the data looks like. We have username. What else do we have? Okay, name, username, ID. Let's just display these three. Name, ID, name, and username. Let's display just these three. Users. Map. Put your callback function there. Then now, thank God our data has ID. You see, when your data has ID, it's always advisable that you use the ID as the key instead of using index. So I'll say key equals to user.id. So since our data has ID, it's good that I use it as the ID. So I can say my name or my username is username. What else? We also have a name. My name is with a name. Let me break it to the next one. With a name of user's name and an ID of user's ID. So let's go to the browser and see the result there. So when I click on this button, we have this. Any question? Should I go over it again? Okay, someone is saying no. Okay, Emmanuel Babalala, you can ask your question. Are you there? Okay, I don't think.
Yes, sir. My question is, what's the difference between issues and get and fetch?
Okay. Thank you. Fetch API is inbuilt in JavaScript. It's part of JavaScript itself. But Axios is not part of JavaScript. It's an external library. So you can see whenever I need to use Axios, I need to find a way to bring it into the project. When I wanted to use it in React, I had to do npm install Axios. When I wanted to use it when I went to HTML, when I wanted to use it, I went online to search for the link for the CDN. I went online to search for the CDN, then put it so that I can use Axios because Axios is not part of JavaScript. But Axios is simple, it's simple to use, so I prefer it to using the Fetch API. I prefer it to Fetch API. It's simple and it's also lightweight. So because it's light, I feel adding it will not be a big deal to the project. So, Axios is a third-party library, while Fetch API is part of JavaScript.
Okay, sir.
Any other question?
Should we stick to Axios?
You can use Axios, you can use Fetch API, whichever one you are more comfortable with. I just like Axios because of the simplicity. Because of the simplicity. Yeah, okay. If you to check how to use Fetch API, you can check out my JavaScript textbook. You can check it out. I dedicated a session for asynchronous call, making API requests. That should be, I think, last chapter of the textbook. So you can go to it and see how to use Fetch API if you want to use Fetch API. I think that's the thing. So whichever one you're more comfortable with, you can use it. Any other question? Okay. Now, let's talk about uh, use effects. We are not going to, in fact, I will just mention it today. You see the need for it, and in our next class, we're going to use effects proper, do it proper. Now, imagine this scenario whereby when a user gets to your page, presently the user needs to click on this button before you do this. But imagine a situation whereby when a user gets to your page, you want to automatically display all of this. So use effects solves that problem. Use effects allows you to do what we call side effects. What are side effects? React is primarily meant for UI, user interface, just to render things on the page. I haven't put it like that. That is primarily meant to render things on the page and to react to events. Maybe when you click, when you do something, load something. When you do something, do this. But things outside this, they are known as side effects. Things like getting data from an endpoint, like this is a side effect. So when you're running side effects, you can use effects to handle side effects. Do you understand? Anything outside from React core purpose, render things and respond to events. Maybe when you click, you just want to change something and alter the interface immediately. Anything outside that, it's known as a side effect. So this here, getting fetching data from an endpoint is a side effect, and you can easily use effects to handle side effects in React.js. So in our next class, we look at that. But I have an assignment for us. So here is my assignment. Okay, I think someone wants to say something. Okay, you can ask your question. Alatayo or Latif.
Okay. At times I do get confused. Like there is in a situation whereby someone is building backend projects like this API of a thing, and the backend is running on, let's say, the port of 4,000, and you want to integrate front end with it, let's say with this React. And React, let's say we are running that one on port 3,000. Like, can you give a brief explanation on how we can actually, integrate the two together, even with the different ports? And whenever we want to, see any interface, any UI, maybe from the front end, from the back end, we have to render it. And if we want to fetch data from the API to the back end, so we'll get it from React.
Okay. Now, to fetch data from an endpoint, whether from an endpoint, of course, your backend is an endpoint too. You just put the URL here, the link and the ports, localhost. Of course, this is localhost 3000. So let's say your backend is localhost 4000, localhost 4000 colon, localhost colon 4000. It will fetch it for you. One issue you may not have is security or cross-site origin sharing. We call it CORS. So that's one issue you may have, but backend will be the one to solve it. At the backend, you allow you allowed a, how do I say, we call it uh,
Com or something. Thus,
yes, CORS. I'm trying to remember the property we had. If okay, now at the back end now you allow an it's not an address. Mm, So what I'm going to do is at the back end, you allow this front end. You are going to state that, oh, I want to allow requests from localhost 3000. You
okay, like
understand?
whitelisting.
Yes, you whitelist the front end for security reasons. So you whitelist it so that this
Okay, only so that only that one will be the
you'll
one
be able to access
fetch.
it. Yes. So you do that at the back end. Okay.
Okay. Yes, now. So you do the configuration of whitelisting from the back end.
Yes, of course, you do that at the back end.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
It will be successful without now. Then except, of course, browser do enforce CORS, cross-site origin sharing. Browser do enforce it. It won't allow you to go except you do the configuration at the back end, then it will go. Okay, but that's beyond the scope of this course. My assignment for us is this. When you click on this button, this fetches all the names, right? All this information. But I'm only interested in the usernames alone. Did you get it? I want you to only fetch, so when you fetch data from this endpoint, we saved it as users, right? But I want this instead to be usernames, so that when I check usernames now, so this will be usernames. So this username will just be the usernames alone, not all the info. I'm only interested in the username. And when I map it, I only want to see just the user name. Because of this ID that we need here, fetch just the username and the ID, just the two. The username and the ID. I come again. When you fetch and I check, what I will do is I will come here and say, I will try to check the value of these usernames. So I want it to just be an array of objects that looks like this. ID the first ID and the username. Maybe the username of the first person is bytes. Okay, bytes. Then comma ID 2 and the username. Then the second person, the username of the second person. This. So just the ID and the usernames alone, not all. Do you understand? Not all. So thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. I'll be expecting the. Okay, someone is raising up his hand.
Is it on click on the button or just to fetch on the page as it loaded?
No, on click of the button. Stay on click,
Okay.
just like the way it's working. But instead of fetching all, if I say console log usernames now, I will see. Let me try to display all the usernames here. Usernames. So you can see it's fetching everything. It's fetching everything. But instead, I don't want to fetch everything. I only want this username now. Where is it? This usernames to just be this ID and the username. I want to see how much you understand. What do we call these functions? The map filter find. What do we call them? I've forgotten the general name for them. Other functions. Yeah. I want to see how much you understand the other functions. So I've already given you hints. You are going to make use of any of them to solve this. So I just want to see you get the ID and the username alone. Just that. Not other information. I'm not interested in other information. ID and username alone. Okay. Can we call it a day at this point? Okay. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.